All right, Jabosai, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pei, our annual Talmud Torah sponsor, the Tilson Mishpacha of Yisroel, for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this year in the zechus of completing Maseches Bava Basra, and Baruch Hashem wading into the holy waters of Maseches Sanhedrin. May we zoch Emiras Hashem to finish this Masechta with Mazel, with Bracha, Mishad, Tavul, Mitzlachas. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev, Josh and Becca Friedman, for dedicating all the Shurman Joshos this month, creation of the Yahrzeit of Josh's father, Yisroel Yehuda ben HaRav Chaim Rephael, Zichrono Livracha, in the zechus of a safe return of our hostages and the security of all of our holy soldiers. Samuel Malka Esterson, for dedicating all the Shurman Joshos this month in memory of their parents, Yitzchak Laib ben Aharon HaKohen, Sarah Rachel Bas Baruch Avraham, Hinda Bas Henech Efrayim, and in memory of their dear friend, brave soldier, beloved husband, father, skilled physiotherapist, Naftali Gordon, Naftali Yonah Hy, Ben Beatrice, Miriam, and Daniel Yigal. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshama Slav and Aliyah, the families in Nechama, all of those who need a refuah, should everyone together with Kol Cholei Yisrael, the Baruch Hu should bring home our hostages, B'Shalom and B'Karov, and our holy soldiers should be successful. B'Chol Ma'aseh Yedehim. But with that, let us begin. We have a lot to do today. Beautiful, beautiful Gemara ahead of us. A lot of beautiful Gemara ahead of us. Today's daf is daf Zayin 7. We are picking up on Vav Amud Beis, and we left off. Where did we leave off? Fifth of the of the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the intermediate wide lines. Okay, got it. Reish Lakish. Fine. So the first of the widest lines, right? Correct. Good. First of the widest lines. Excellent. Okay, good. Reish Lakish says. So I'll say, remember again, we're still in the midst of the topic regarding pshara, regarding compromise, and what does one do in a situation? Is compromise something we strive for? Compromise something that we do, we don't do? Again, the topic over here of Reish Lakish. So the Gemara says as follows. Reish Lakish says as follows. Shnaim sheba'ol l'din. Echad rach ve'echad kasha. This is interesting. So imagine for a moment you're the dayan. Two people come before you, Ruvain and Shimon. Ruvain is rach and kasha means Ruvain is very soft, easygoing, and Shimon is difficult. So what am I concerned about? Now watch this. Achelo tishma divreyan. So again, if they have not yet begun presenting their cases, or they presented their cases, but I don't yet have judicial clarity, a judge has a right to recuse himself. So either before they presented their cases, their sides, or after they presented their sides, but the judge doesn't yet have real clarity as to where things are heading, the judge has a right to recuse himself. Why? Now what is the judge concerned about? Shema nischayev chazak v'nimsa chazak rodfo. So what is the judge concerned about? I'm concerned that what's going to happen, Shimon, who's the very prickly, difficult guy, what's going to happen? He's going to lose the case, and he's just going to come after me. He's not going to let up. And the truth is, I don't want to deal with it. So interestingly enough, so if it's before they presented their cases, or even after they presented their cases, but before I have a sense of clarity, I have the right to recuse myself. However, Shemin is chayiv chazak v'nimtza chazak rofeu. Mishatishma divreyin v'ati yodea lehechan adenota. But if I already heard their sides, and I already have some semblance, I already have some level of clarity as to kind of which way the din comes out, but if I heard the sides, and again I have a little bit of clarity as to how this is going to shake out, I don't have the right to recuse myself. Why? Shene'emar lo saguru mipnei ish. Literally, again, we'll see exactly what saguru means, but for our purposes right now, don't fear anyone. Don't. In other words, the judge has an obligation to be fearless. So don't be fearful of any person. I will say, what a profound Gemara. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, which is in life. Sometimes you have the ability to not get involved. Right? And again, right? I think when we're young, we're very incredibly idealistic. Sometimes like naively idealistic, and we think we could solve every single problem. As we get older, we recognize, I can't solve every problem. And therefore, again, there's a certain amount of dispassionate maturity which says, I'm not getting involved in this because I can't affect change. So you have a right to say, I'm not getting involved because I can't help. But once you are involved, you don't have a right to shirk your responsibilities. Once you're involved, then ultimately, again, see the process through to completion. An incredibly profound Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel Silber says, Rabbi Shmuel says as follows, how do I know that if a student is sitting before his Rebbe, zechus, and I remember again, going back to yesterday's daf, a student should not paskin in the presence of his Rebbe. Right? We've established this. So how do I know that if a student is sitting in front of his Rebbe, and what happens? The Rebbe is adjudicating a case. And essentially the Talmud feels that the Rebbe is delivering an erroneous psak. And so the student sees a zechus, he sees a merit for the poor person. Or he sees a way in which the rich person is guilty. How do we know that a student should not be silent in the presence of his Rebbe? So once again, this is talking about a case where the Rebbe is paskening the case, the Rebbe is the dayan, the student is there, the student sees that the Rebbe is mistaken in what he's about to pasken. So how do I know that in such a scenario, the student should not be silent in the presence of the Rebbe? Shne'emar lo sagura mipnei ish. Do not be fearful. We're going to see really what lo sagura really means is don't withhold. Right? Don't withhold in the presence of any person. Rabbi Chanan Omer, lo sachnis tivarecha mipnei ish. Do not withhold your words in front of another person, even if that other person is your Rebbe. So again, there's this very fine line. On one hand, the Talmud is always obligated to have derech eretz, always obligated to have kavod for his Rebbe. Right? On the other hand, if the student sees that the Rebbe is making a mistake, then halacha l'maisa, the student is obligated to ensure that an erroneous judicial ruling does not get made, and is obligated to speak up even in the presence of his Rebbe. Incredible. So the Gemara says, "V'hi edim yodim esmihein meidin." So now the Gemara gives some mussar to the witnesses. Witnesses, when you testify, know about whom you are testifying. Right? Meaning, the Gemara makes it as if the witnesses are testifying about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because since testimony is such a heavy thing, and since you are going ahead and determining the outcome, potentially the outcome of people's lives, so there has to be a tremendous sense of responsibility. Witnesses know it's as if you're giving testimony about HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And before whom you are giving testimony. And if you testify falsely, who is going to extract punishment from you? Because the pasuk says, "V'yamdu shnei ha'anoshim asher lahem ariv lifnei Hashem." The pasuk says that ultimately, again, adjudication, right? The two people who are litigating against each other know that they are standing before Hashem. When you come for testimony, you're coming before God, because remember, again, ultimate judgment is reserved for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore anyone involved in the judicial process, it's as if they're standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the judges should know, who are they judging? So kiviyachol, they're judging HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And before whom are they giving that judgment? And who is going to extract punishment from them should they fail in their responsibility? Shne'emar Elokim nitzav ba'adaskel. Or Elohim nitzav ba'adaskel. V'chein b'Yehoshaphat Omer v'yomer lashoftim re'u ma'atem osim kilo adam tishpetu kiyim la'Hashem. The pasuk says that Yehoshaphat said to the shoftim, he said to the judges, see what you are doing, for you are not only adjudicating man, but you are adjudicating, so to speak, God. Shema Yomru. So what says, so the idea over here is that if you are involved in the judicial proceedings, understand that the Ribono Shalom is involved as well. And therefore, if you pervert the process, you corrupt the process, you're dishonest in the process, just know that all of this is happening in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Gemara says, listen to this. Shema Yomer Hadayin, Mali B'tzarazeh. So maybe after seeing this Gemara, a judge is going to say, you know what do I need this for? Forget it, right? Forget it. What do I need this headache for? So the Gemara says, Tavul Lomar, Imachem B'dvar Mishpat, or Imchem B'dvar Mishpat, Ein lo l'dayin ela ma she'einav ros. So Moshe Kadosh Baruch Hu says, don't worry. He says, this is incredible. What Kadosh Baruch Hu says to the judge is, your job is not to ensure that you produce perfect results. Rather, your job is to ensure that the process is holy and pure. And meaning, what does that mean? So for a judge, remember, we'll say, is it possible that a judge delivers an erroneous ruling? Is that possible? Absolutely. So what is the job of a judge? The job of a judge is to adjudicate a case properly based on what he's able to see. That's it. Ein l'dayin lodun, ein l'dayin ela ma she'einav ros. A judge is only able to act based on what he's able to see with his own eyes. A very profound Gemara. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't expect anything from the judge other than to do the best you can with the information you have at hand. Is it possible that the judge will deliver an erroneous ruling? It's possible. That's not what Kadosh Baruch Hu holds you culpable for. Kadosh Baruch Hu holds you culpable only if you don't see the process through in the right way. And I both say in general that's such a beautiful and incredible line. Ein l'dayin ela ma she'einav ros. It's very important that in life, when we pass judgment, understand we're only passing judgment based on what we see with our own eyes. And as we get older, we recognize that what we see with our own eyes very often is never the complete picture. So it's so incredibly important. What you see is ultimately what you pass judgment with, but what you see is rarely the entirety of the picture. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. By the way, so the Gemara says, what exactly is, when we say the verdict, what is the Gemara din? So remember again, going back for just a second. So, what's Gemara din? So we'll say, so remember again, beforehand we had the approach of Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe. Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe said that halacha l'maisa, once the judge reaches a verdict, you can't go ahead and suggest pshara. You can't suggest compromise, right? Compromise could be suggested before a verdict is delivered. Well, this is machlokas, exactly when you could revert to compromise. But certainly, again, once the Gemara din has been delivered, you can't go to compromise. So the Gemara says, okay, when's the verdict? What's considered to be Gemara din? I'm not Yutam Rav. Ish ploni ata chayiv, ish ploni ata zakai. All right? When the judges say, Ruvain, you're chayiv, Shimon, you're pater. Amarav, halach Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. So Rav said the halacha follows Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha. So Rabbi Shua ben Karcha was the opinion that said in yesterday's daf, mitzvah livtsoa. It is a mitzvah to do pshara. Right? Rabbi Shua ben Karcha preferred pshara, compromise, over mediation, over adjudication. So now comes along the Gemara and says that. Right. So Rav said, "The halacha is Yisroel Karcha." Is that so? HaRav Huna Talmidei de Rav Hava. Yet Rav Huna was a Talmud of Rav. Ki Hava Asalu Kamed Rav Huna. And when litigants would come to Rav Huna, he would say to them, "Amar lahu, Dina ba'isu, Pshara ba'isu." So again, when litigants would come before Rav Huna would ask them, "Do you want din? Do you want adjudication, or do you want pshara? Do you want mediation?" So there's a contradiction. Because Rav just said the mitzvah follows Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says mitzvah livtsoa. It is a mitzvah to go ahead and do pshara. But yet Rav's own Talmud, which sounds like pshara, mediation is the preferred mechanism. Yet Rav Huna, who is Rav's Talmud, seems to be giving people the choice. To which the Gemara says, no. My mitzvah, now I need to come to Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. When Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says that it is a mitzvah to do pshara, what does he mean? Top of Zion 7a. My mitzvah lememra lahu idina ba'isu pshara ba'isu. What Rabbi Shua ben Karcha meant was as follows: that when litigants come before you, it is a mitzvah to give them the choice. To give them the choice. What do you prefer? Do you prefer mediation or do you prefer adjudication? So it's very interesting. So Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, we thought the whole time he was saying that it is preferred to mediate over adjudicate. Now it turns out what he really meant was it is a mitzvah to present the litigants with their options. Chevra, do you want to adjudicate or do you want to mediate? So Gemara says if that's the case, Hainu Tanakama, then Rabbi Shua ben Karcha saying the same thing as the Tanakama. Ikabenayo mitzvah. No. The nafkamina between them would be whether or not there is a mitzvah to tell the litigants what their options are. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Savra mitzvah. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says it is a mitzvah to tell the litigants what their options are, mediation versus adjudication. Tanakama Savra Rishus. Tanakama holds, no, it's not a mitzvah to tell them what their options are, but rather, again, you have the right to tell them what their options are. The Gemara says, if that's the case, then it's the same thing as the position of Rabbi Shimon ben Asya. So there, both said the point of contention will be, at what point do you have the ability, if they started a process of din, at what point do you have the ability to still shift them over to pshara? Okay. And I both say this entire, and this argues on Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai. What is it? Because Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai, lo ne'emra mikra zeh ela kineged ma'aseh egel. So both says, remember again, let's go back for a second. I think we're switching gears. If you remember again, Rabbi Lazar, the son of Yosef Levi, quoted the pasuk that said that it is asur livtzah. You cannot engage in compromise, right? You can't engage in mediation, right? Rather, again, yikov hadin es hahar. Everything is about strict justice. And he quoted the pasuk, Botzea berach nietz Hashem. That literally, again, if a person praises mediation, or a person praises compromise, that's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. So that interpretation argues on Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai. Why? Because Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai says that pasuk about Tzeach Berach Nietz Hashem, that whoever praises compromise is blaspheming. He holds that refers to the sin of the golden calf. Shene'emar, by the golden calf, Vayar Aron Vayiven Mizbeach Lefanav. So we'll say, remember again, sin of the golden calf that Aaron saw, and he built an altar before him. Now, Aaron was building an altar for the golden calf. Mara, what did Aaron see that caused him to go ahead and build the calf? Amra b'yan bar Yafes, Amra bar Lazar, Ra'achur shezavach lefanav. Aaron saw that the Jewish people murdered Chor. Now, Chor was the son of Miriam. Chor stood up and tried to tell the people not to build the calf. Moshe is going to come back, and even if Moshe doesn't come back, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take care of us. Don't do this. They killed Chor. Aaron saw that they killed Chor. And what does Aaron say to himself? Amar, I lo shamar alohu hashta avdu li kida avdu b'chor. So Aaron said, if I don't do what the people want and build them this golden calf, they're going to kill me like they killed Chor. Now, lest you think that Aaron's entire motivation was self-preservation, that's not true. Makayim bi im yarog b'mikdash Hashem kohen v'navi v'lo havi luhu takanta li olam. Aaron was concerned like this. Aaron was concerned not about his own life. Aaron was concerned about Klal Yisrael. Aaron was, if Klal Yisrael kills me, if they kill me, Aharon HaKohen, there's going to be no coming back for Klal Yisrael from that sin. That'll be such an egregious act of trespass that'll be beyond redemption. Therefore, mutav dile avdula egel efshar havilu takanta b'tshuva. So what's that is incredible. Aaron felt, let them build the golden calf, because at least if they build the calf, they could do tshuva later on. If they kill me, Aharon HaKohen, there's no coming back from that aveira. But if they build the golden calf, hopefully they'll be able to redeem themselves from that sometime later on. So we'll say, see here what happened? Aaron essentially, he made a compromise in his mind. He's like, better to do this aveira of the golden calf, avodah zarah, which hopefully again they could come back from, rather than killing me, which they will not be able to come back from. And therefore Aaron makes the compromise. So I will say, so interestingly enough, what's happening over here is the Gemara faults him for that compromise. The Gemara says, Aaron, bad compromise. What should Aaron have done? What should he have done? He should have stood up to Klal Yisrael in this pivotal moment and said, Klal Yisrael, no. So we'll say, now again, when you hear the logic is so profound and so beautiful and so incredible. Aaron was trying to save Klal Yisrael. But what you begin to see, and this is what we saw yesterday with Yehuda, right? Yehuda is trying to make a compromise. He's trying to save Yosef. No, what you do is you say, Chavra, we're not doing this. In other words, I'll say, what the Gemara needs to highlight is like this. Compromise is a very powerful tool. And could be used in such a constructive way to go ahead and prevent machlokes. But there are times where something is so wrong and something is so egregious that the use of compromise as a tool for conflict resolution is unequivocally wrong. Yehuda, the sale of your brother is wrong. This is not a time for compromise. You stand up for what is right. Aaron, the building of a golden calf in this moment is so wrong. The use of compromise in this context is egregious. Stand up for what's right. Now again, in Yehuda's defense, he thinks he's doing the right thing. In Aaron's defense, he thinks he's doing the right thing. But I will say, but again, just because you think you're doing the right thing doesn't mean you are doing the right thing. This incredible idea that sometimes there's a time for compromise, but sometimes the disparity between the two sides is so clear, right? It's so vast that you have to find the koach to dispense with compromise and to only do what is right. Incredible. V'hani tanoi, and these opinions, Poter Mayim Reishis Madun Maidar Shibei. Shabbos Miriam recorded this pasuk yesterday. Poter Mayim from Mishlei. Poter Mayim Reishis Madun. That literally again the opening of the channel of water, right, is the beginning of judgment. What do they do with it? So the Gemara says, Kid Rav Hamnuna. Both say first wide line on 7a. Like Rav Hamnuna. What does Rav Hamnuna say? Am Rav Hamnuna. It's beautiful Gemara. Ein Tchilas Dino Shel Adam Nidon Ella Al Divrei Torah. Rabbi says it's incredible. After 120, the first thing that a person is judged on is Torah. Is Torah. Did you learn Torah or not? Did you learn Torah? Shnei Amar, Poter Mayim Reishis Madan. So I'll say, because again, Mayim, water, is often compared to Torah. So Poter Mayim Reishis Madan, the first thing I'm judged about after 120 is Torah. Tosis and the Marsha ask a number of different questions on this, that, about on the three questions that I'm asked about after I die. Torah is the second one, but we're not going to get into that. I would say, point over here that I want to make to you something amazing. The first question that a Yid is asked after he dies is, did you learn Torah? Did you learn Torah? So you will say, Tosis points out that the question that the Gemara phrases is, Kavata itim la Torah. Did you set aside set times for Torah? So that's a more specific question. In other words, it's not enough just to learn. That's from our own lives. You have to have a set time. Why do you have to have a set time? Why? Come on, we know this. Because anything you don't have a set time for usually doesn't get done. So it's not enough just to say, sure, I'm going to build Torah somewhere into my day. It's got to have its own set time. Here what the Gemara is highlighting, I will say, is there's a more general question. Did you learn? Did you learn Torah? Because if the answer to that is no, if there's no Torah in my life, I don't have anything else. Because everything comes from Torah. Mostly, if you think about it, right? The more we learn, the more we know this. Everything comes from Torah. My ability to be a proper Jew comes only from learning. My ability to be a proper human being comes from learning. My ability to be a good husband, to be a good father, to be a good friend, all of this comes from my learning. And therefore, after 120, the first question I'm asked is, did you learn? Because if the answer to that question is no, chas v'shalom, then we don't even have to go on after that. Because chances are everything after that is a little bit disastrous. If the answer is yes, then the Mirat Hashem, hopefully that paved the way for success in all of my other areas in life as well. Incredible. Amravuna. Hi Tigra de Maya. Litzinura de Bidka de Maya. So listen to this. So the Gemara says, this Tigra is machlokes. Where there is machlokes in life, it is compared ultimately again to an overflowing river. So we'll say, what happens when the river overflows its banks? It begins to create additional channels of water. Now, if you dam up the river quickly, those additional channels will not develop into anything. If you don't dam up the river quickly, what ends up happening? Those channels themselves end up becoming rivers or significant channels of water. This is very similar to machlokes, to discord, or to dispute. Kevan de ravach. You know what happens with machlokes? When machlokes begins, it's like an overflowing river. If you dam it up, you shut it down, you stop it quickly, it won't overflow. But it won't continue. But if machlokes occurs and you don't stop it, then those channels become raging rivers unto themselves. Such a tremendous Musar Haskell. Sometimes you can't prevent machlokes from happening, but you can prevent machlokes from perpetuating. Right? I didn't always begin the fight, right? I didn't always begin the machlokes, but often in life I have the power to shut it down so that it doesn't escalate into something more. Abai Kshisha said, Dami Laguda de Gamlo, Kevan de Kam. So as I saw, ultimately, again, machlokes is very interesting. Machlokes is like planks on the bridge over a river. When you build a new bridge, and you have the planks, at first the planks creak a little bit, but then the more that people walk on it, what happens? The planks settle into place. And once they settle into place, they're immovable. That's like machlokes. When machlokes begins, it's like shaky. After a little while, when machlokes is perpetuated, it drops and it sets into place. And once it sets into place, it's very difficult to reverse course. So let's say this idea being, and this is so profound in life, we know that when dispute starts, there's that moment where it started, and I know that I'm at that crossroads. And what's the crossroads? I could either stop it and prevent it from escalating, or do nothing, or worse, even, pour fuel on the fire. But just know that if you pour fuel on the fire, even do nothing, once the river overflows, if you don't dam it up, it's just going to keep flowing. The planks will settle into place. In those pivotal moments of machlokes, sometimes I didn't start it, but I absolutely have the power to stop it and prevent it from perpetuating. Incredible. Let's go back. So we'll say, now the Gemara is going to talk about some famous sayings. Hahu dava ka'amar va'azah. There was a guy, literally hahu means there was a person. Whether there was actually a person who said this, or this was just a common adage. But again, there was a person who used to always say, Tuvia deshama va'adish chalfua bishte meya. So literally again, right, praiseworthy is the person who hears his own degradation and doesn't say anything, ultimately, again, as a result of his silence, he will avert 100 catastrophes. So I will say, which is a simple way of saying that sometimes, in life, people say things and we hear things, and the reflexive response is to respond. And what happens when you respond? You open up a whole nother dynamic. And sometimes, again, you hear something you don't like, if you just stay quiet and just don't answer, you save yourself from so much heartache going forward. Incredible. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda. So Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, Kraksiv, there's a pasuk that highlights this. Polter mayim reishis madun, reish mea dini. So there's a pasuk I will say that highlights this as well. That literally, again, a person opens, right? Polter mayim reishis madun, opening up the water. Opening up the water is the beginning of judgment. Reish mea dini. Okay? Hodik so says that's our first adage. Hahudava dahava ka'amar va'azah. So I say adage number one is just because I think it's one of the earliest lessons that our parents teach us, right? That just because someone says something to you doesn't mean you need to respond. I just want to point out, that this used to be a relatively simple idea, right? I definitely think that since the advent of social media and different things where response becomes instantaneous, right? This is one of the hardest things. Right? Someone says something, someone posts something, and the need, almost like verbal vomit, the need to just instantaneously respond without thought gets people into so much trouble. But this idea, this yisod, that just because someone says something doesn't mean I have to respond to it. And it's more than that. Sometimes not responding saves me from so much heartache later on. Okay, next. Hahu davaka amar va'azel. Atarti tlas ganva lo mikdal. This is interesting. A thief often is not punished for 2 or 3 thefts. If you look at Rashi says, what does this mean? Kilamar im over adam avera pamayim v'shalosh lo ba'alav paronos ayitma da'achari tlas ganva lo mikdal v'sofa lo kos bachar. This is incredible. Sometimes the thief steals 2 or 3 times and he's not punished. Meaning what? That sometimes in life I commit averos and there's no punishment. Well, don't think that just because I did averos and didn't get punished, that punishment is not coming. Right? I don't say sometimes the way the world works is you can do a lot of bad stuff and you don't get punished, but just know there is an accounting for everything we do in this world. Am Yisroel Yehuda Kruksiv Kamar Hashem Ashlosha Pishe Yisrael VaArba Lo Ashivena. So we'll say the second adage is the thief will steal 2 or 3 times and nothing happens, and he thinks he's going to get away with it. But Lamaisa, again, just know that the day of reckoning is coming. Next, Hudu Kavakamaval is another adage. Somebody used to say, Shev Biri L'Shamana V'Chada La'avid Bish. So what does this mean? So literally again, Shev Bir L'Shamana, 7 pits. 7 pits could be dug, and a person could be saved from all of them. But yet, the person who does one bad thing falls into his pit. Now, what does this mean? That the tzaddik, right? A person who lives a righteous life is often saved from misfortune in ways that he doesn't even know. Right? When I live my life in accordance with the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so often what ends up happening is the Rebbe Shalom saves me in ways in which I'm often totally unaware. But yet the person who does not live in accordance with the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu falls into every entrapment in front of him. Rabbi Shmuel Yehuda Kruk says, there's a passage that says, Ki sheva yipol tzadik v'kam v'rasha yipol ba'achos. Next, Huda v'kamar v'azil. Right, another adage. So the Gemara says, "Haudav ka'amar va'azil, the azil mi beidina shakel glima li zamer zemer v'leizel ba'achar." Rabbi says incredible. A person who was found guilty in court, and as a result, they took his coat, they took his cloak. He should sing on the way home. Right? Why? The Gemara says, "Shmuel Yehuda Kruksiv." So Rabbi said, this is really incredible. What does this mean? Rabbi say, why should he sing? So what's interesting what I'm saying is like this. In life, you only have what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to have. And if you lose something, it's because the Ribono Shel Olam didn't want you to have it. And if he didn't want you to have it, it means you don't need it in order to be successful. See, a lot of times in life when we lose something, whatever the something may be, there's a profound sadness because we feel that we lost something that we needed, and as such we feel fundamentally compromised. If you needed it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wouldn't have taken it from you. If you don't have it, it means you don't need it in order to be successful in your life's mission. Now again, it doesn't mean that the loss of it isn't painful and isn't hurtful. But I will say, but just know, if you don't have it, you don't need it in order to be successful in your unique mission in life. So therefore, again, if in this case, if I lost the shirt off my back, right? I lost my cloak in Beis Din, what should you do in walking home? Right? Sing a niggin, right? Whistle on your way home. Why? Because if you don't have it, you don't need it. I will say, this is incredibly profound, because often in life we daven for things, we want things, and we don't get it. And I will say, it's important to understand, sometimes we approach life with a profound sense of theological immaturity, thinking that if we daven for something, we should get it, and if we don't get it, it leads us to such a crisis of faith. I will say, one thing I've come to find is we are very theologically fragile. And if we don't get what we want from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it leads us to a crisis of faith. I didn't get what I wanted. I davened for this and I didn't. No. Sometimes the answer is no. And if the answer is no, it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me I don't need what it is that I'm davening for. I don't need it. I might want it, but I don't need it in order to be successful. And it's important in life that when you don't get what you want, or you lose something that you had, to be able to still sing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about that. Because if I don't have it, I didn't get it, or I lost it, theologically what that means is I don't need it in order to be successful. And the ability to accept that, and the ability to sing about that, is one of the highest levels of theological accomplishment. It's what David HaMelech says, Leman yizamercha kavod velo yidom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I will continue to sing to you and I will not be silenced. No matter what happens in life, no matter what I get, I don't get. I receive, I lose. Whatever it is, I will continue to sing. Because, I will say a very important mantra, if I don't have it, I don't need it in order to be successful. Incredible Gemara. Amar Shmuel Yehuda. Krok Siv, is a pasuk that supports this. The Gam Kala Amazeh Amakol Yaval B'Shalom. Hahu Davak Amar Va'azil. So I will say. So again, another adage. Guy used to say, right? Literally, the way it's literally translated is there was a person who to have a Amar Va'azil who would constantly say this same thing. Naima Vidikula Shapil. That was this great line. Naima means if a person is dozing, it literally means if a woman is dozing. Dikula Shapil, her basket is lower. In other words, a person would carry their basket on their head. So if a person is dozing, the basket is carried a little bit lower. Now, what does this mean? If Rashi says over here, Kisha Isha minamenes hasal sha'aro shoshi nosenes bo pilcho malachto shafil kolomar mitoch shiatzela in malachta nikeres v'kula mashalsin. So we'll say, interestingly enough, this is a simple adage. What's the simple adage? If you're lazy, your work doesn't really get done well. Or said a different way, laziness could often be seen in the product, in the product you produce. I will say, we see this in life. Things that I really care about, get done in a certain way. And things that I don't care about get done in a certain way. And often you could see what I care about and what I don't care about based on the product that I produce. So again, if the person is lazy, right, person is sleepy, so the basket is not as high. The basket is going to be carried a little bit lower. Incredible. Am Yisroel Yehuda. Kraksiv basatayim imach hamakara. So we'll say the pasuk over here quotes that literally again, if a person is lazy, the ceiling is going to sag. In other words, when a person is a worker and they're finishing the ceiling, if they put in the effort, the ceiling is going to look great. Otherwise, the ceiling is going to sag. Okay. There was a person, I will say, who used to say the following. Gavra derachitzna alei aji legziza v'kam. So I will say, so if you take a look at Rashi says over here, so literally translated, Gavra dirachitzna alei, a person who I trusted, raised his fist against me. Someone who I trusted turned against me. Amalei Shmuel Yehuda Krux. If there's a pasuk, Gam ish shlomi hashavatachti bo. They both say, now what's the point of this? What's the point of this one? So they both say, this is actually a very profound statement. There's sometimes the people you trust turn against you. So we'll say, it's a very important yisod, and it's going to sound a little bit like a downer, but if there's one thing you could count on in every single relationship, it's that people will fail you. People will always fail you. Now, that's not, I don't mean that like as like a cynical, like don't count on anyone. We're human beings. Human beings are frail and fragile, which means no one is perfect. And so often in life, we feel that like if someone loves me, all right, then they should always be there for me or always come through for me. But no one could always come through. And no one could always be there. And no one could always perform. And this happens all the time, right? I love someone, I have trust in them, I believe in them, and they don't come through. And I feel so betrayed. Meanwhile, it's not an act of betrayal, right? What is it? It's just humankind. No one's always on. No one's always perfect. And sometimes, again, I feel like if you love me, you've always got my back. I do love you. Of course I love you. But I can't always do anything because I'm a human being. I'm just not perfect. And so those moments when someone who we love and someone who we trust and someone who we depend on, quote unquote, betrays us, it's so hurtful. The betrayal, or is not, even betrayal is too strong of a word. They just don't come through in the way that I expected them to. The feeling of betrayal is so profound. Meanwhile, they didn't mean to betray me. They're just a human being. And it's so important to also say in those moments to recognize it's not an act of betrayal. It's just a moment of human frailty. Even the people sometimes who you trust in greatly, raise your fist. Now again, sometimes I will say it means that, yeah, people who I really trust actually betray me. Yeah, that does happen also. And that's even much worse. But even not an act of betrayal, just sometimes people who I put a tremendous amount of trust in are not there when I need them. But it's not because they don't care. It's just because you're human beings. So the Gemara goes weiter. I'm going to say this is an incredible Gemara. There was another person who used to say as follows. Ki rechemesin Hava aziza afusya de safsira shechivan. So I'll say this is incredible. There was a guy who used to say the following adage. You know, when I was madly in love with my wife, right? And the love was passionate. We were able to sleep together on the sharp edge of the sword, right? Hashta delo azizurach misan. Now that our love is not as passionate, porya barshisan garmidi lo sagilan. Even a bed that is 60 amas wide is not big enough for us. And I will say now, this is a profound Gemara. A profound Gemara. What is the Gemara saying? That you know, when the love is passionate and intense, right? We don't need our own space, right? Husband and wife can occupy the same space, right? And we're fine. We can sleep together on the edge of the sword. I don't need my own space. She doesn't need our own together. And then as time goes on, what happens? The husband needs his space. The wife needs her space. And suddenly, again, there's not enough space for everyone. That was saying, now, by the way, so like, what do you do with a Gemara like this? What exactly is the takeaway message? So I will say, I think there are many takeaway messages, but I do think what's very important to understand is that love and marriage evolves. And sometimes, again, you know, I will say, I've often thought about this. I don't know if this is true. You know how like people get very caught up in the extinction of like, I don't know, like the humpback whale or different things like that. Like, you know, people get really caught up in this stuff. I've always, and again, I don't know, I don't have any like expert information on this, but I've often wondered to myself, you know, getting caught up in this concept of extinction presupposes that things are supposed to last forever. Who says the humpback whale is supposed to be around forever? Who says? Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the humpback whale that is supposed to be. And again, I want to be clear. I have nothing against the humpback whales. They should live and be well, right? But again, I'm just wondering. Like people get caught up, or like global warming. Global warming. Well, I don't know if it's true or not. But global warming. Right? So like, who says that the Earth is supposed to remain at a constant? In other words, all of these things presuppose that things are supposed to remain as they are, but maybe not. Maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world is in a constant state of evolution. Everything is always just, so maybe the species that existed, 100 years ago are not supposed to exist today. Or maybe, again, the temperature of the world is supposed to, I don't know. But one thing is clear, which is definitely in the realm of relationships, things don't remain the same. So I will say, it's true, right? Like, you ever see like a chassan and kala, right? Like, oh, they're so cute, like, they're whispering, and they're this, and that, sometimes a couple's been married a little bit longer, or a lot longer, and they're like, oh, like, why don't we have that, right? Why don't we have that? And I'll say like, why don't we have that? Because we have responsibility, right? Right? Because no one's supporting us, right? Because like, oh, like, and suddenly again, you have all these, and you realize that it's supposed to evolve, right? If you're married for 20 years, and you're still the same childish, like looking into each other's eyes, whispering in the corner, that's immature, right? That's immature. You're not supposed to have that. It's supposed to evolve. And that's nothing wrong with your marriage. And there's no less love. And there's no less intensity. It's that marriage and love and everything evolves. So this doesn't have to be like a damning statement about the lack of intensity in marriage. It's just like, things change. Yeah. So chassan and kala, first get inseparable. And they can occupy the same space. Oh, you're stepping on my toes? That's so sweet. That's so cute. It's so wonderful. Please step on my head. Please step all over me. It's great. It's fantastic. Yes, side of the sword. I don't need any space at all. Smother me. Right? And then it's normal that as time goes on and people mature and life changes and there's other responsibilities, I love my spouse no less, but the relationship looks different. Things take, and that's not a bad thing. I will say sometimes, again, we become so disillusioned because, well, how come I don't feel the same intensity in my marriage that I felt under the chuppah, or that I felt at the vart, or that I felt at this? Yeah, because that's life. This life, stuff changes, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's part of the dynamic of human evolution. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Krai Ksiv, Meikar Ksiv. So we'll say, the Pasuk says, V'no arati l'cha sham v'dibarti et chami ala kapores. So we'll say, it's incredible. So originally again, when Baruch Avraham begins his relationship with Klal Yisrael, it says by the Aron, I will speak to you from on top of the lid of the Aron. V'tanya Aron tiyeshava kapores tefach, harikanas Sarah. Remember, the top of the Aron was 10 tefachim. So originally, when Baruch Hu began his relationship with us and began to speak with us, he spoke to us from a height of 10 tefachim, very low down to the earth. Uksiv v'abayis asher bana hamelech Shlomo shishim ama arko v'shishim rachbo u'shloshim ama kamaso u'l'basov ksiv kamar Hashem v'shamayim kisi v'aretz hadom ragli eza bayis asher tivnuli. So I will say, so interestingly enough, so what happens, and later on, Baruch Hu says, my home, or like my throne is in the heavens. So in the beginning, Hashem spoke to us from on top of the kapores, 10 tefachim off the ground, and then He spoke to us from the heavens, meaning relationships change, they evolve, and sometimes again, the intensity and the closeness that marked the beginning changes. The love is still there. The love is still there. But the relationship has evolved in a different way. Incredible. So my masha the hilos I go to lishna the kenushe. So what's the Gemara is going back to what it's stated on Vav Amud Beis 6b. So the Gemara says, what now? Remember again, lo saguru mipnei ish. The Gemara says, how do you know that saguru is a lashon of the kavushehu, is a lashon of holding back? So Rav Nachman Amar Kra v'yayin lo shtishta v'lo sagar v'achar b'yachol v'amar v'hacha tachin b'kayitz lachma agra b'katzir ma'achala Rav Achar Rav Ikar v'hacha oger b'kayitz ben maska. So also these are all different lashonas of holding back. So therefore, remember again how the Gemara used it. Asagar b'nei ish. If a Talmud is sitting in front of his Rebbe and he sees that the Rebbe is making an erroneous ruling, so what happens? The Talmud should not hold back, right? Rather, the Talmud should go ahead and express his opinion. So you see that saguru is a lashon of holding back. Okay, so Mar goes right there. Am Rabbi Shmuel Silber, Am Rabbi Yonah Hy. Kol dayin shedan din emes lamit. That was a beautiful Gemara. Any judge who adjudicates correctly, mashresh shechina b'Yisrael. He causes the divine presence to rest within Klal Yisrael. Shneimar Elokim nitzav ba'adas kel bekerav Elokim yishbot. This was very profound, because since judgment is ultimately reserved for HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself, if a judge adjudicates correctly, he brings the Shechina into the world. It's so beautiful because he's acting in the stead of God. And any judge who does not judge appropriately, gorim l'shchina shetistalik miYisrael, causes the Shechina to depart from Klal Yisrael. Shene'emar mishod aniyim me'ankas evyonim ata akum yomar Hashem. Aharon Shmuel Bar Nachman, Rabbi Yonah Kol dayin shenotal mizeh v'nosim lezeh shelo kidin. Any judge, I will say, who rules erroneously and takes from this one and gives to that one, in other words, that the judge is ruling erroneously, he's ruling incorrectly, and therefore, again, he gives and takes to the wrong person. So what happens? Hashem takes his life from him. So we'll say it's very profound. In other words, this is talking about someone who intentionally perverts judgment. Now remember again, the Dayan acts as the Shaliach, as the agent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what he's doing. So therefore, when he goes ahead and he corrupts judgments, right, and he judges erroneously, he's corrupting the fabric of the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you come to the fabric of the world, I'm going to take your life. Shneimar, al tik zoldal, kidalhu, v'al tidke ani b'shar, ki Hashem yariv rivam, v'kava eskaveim nefesh. Am Rabbi Shmuel Bar, Am Rabbi Yonah Hy. V'olam, Yirvah is incredible Gemara. Li'olam yira dayan kilo cherev munachas lo ben yirakoseh v'gehedem pesucha lo mitachto. We'll say last line. A dayan should see as if a sword is dangling between his legs, and ultimately again Gehenna is open beneath him. That's the responsibility he should feel for delivering proper judgment. Shnei Amar Zayin on the base 7b. Shnei Amar Hine mitaso shel Shlomo Shishim Gibarim Saviv la Migibari Yisrael. Kulam achuzei chermu l'madei milchama ish charbo ayrecha mipacha baleilos mipachdo shel gehenim shedoma l'layla. Okay, so what's the Gemara goes to the pasuk Vashlomo Melech. V'ar Rabbi Yoshia v'tir Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. My dichsiv. What's the meaning of the pasuk? Beis David Kamar Hashem Dino levake mishpat v'tzilu gozel miyad osik v'chi baboker danim v'chal yom ein danim. What does it mean? Only in the morning we judge, and the whole day we don't judge. Ella, listen to this. In bar lecha davar ki boker amru. The Rebbe says is very profound. Rather, it means to the judge like this: Judge, if the matter, right, if the judgment is as clear to you as the morning, then say it. Ve'im lav al tomru. But if not, don't say it. So Rabbi said, this is an incredibly profound Gemara. What it's saying is like this: Judge, when should you issue a ruling? When should you issue a ruling? Only if you are 100% sure. If you're not 100% sure, don't say it. If it's as clear to you as the morning, say it. If not, don't say it. Rabbi said, by the way, it's not just a statement by judges, but it's a good way to live life as well, right? In other words, don't say something if you're not sure about it, right? If you're 100% sure, say it. You're not 100% sure, probably better to hold your tongue. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. Meaning what? We'll say first white line. If something is as clear to you as the fact that your sister is prohibited to you, in other words, if you have such clarity on a particular matter, as much clarity as every person knows their sister is prohibited to them, then say it. If you lack clarity, don't say it. We'll say, how much better would the world be if people lived by this principle? Right? If you know 100% that it's 100% true, say it. If you don't know it's 100% true, don't. Not just an important piece of information for the judge, but for people in general. Rabbi Shmuel Silber, Asar sheyoshin bedin, kolar tava b'savar kulan. So we'll say incredible Gemara. If you have 10 people, right? 10 people are based, let's say, and they're all sitting together and they're judging. So literally, again, the kolar, the chain, or the yoke of responsibility sits upon all of them. In other words, I will say, when you have a group of people engaging in judgment, there is collective responsibility for that judgment. So pshita, that's obvious. Now, what does that come to include? Even if a Talmud is saying in front of his Rebbe, so you might say, because it's a Talmud and his Rebbe, the Rebbe has all the responsibility. The Talmud does not. Kamash will know that even the Talmud has awesome responsibility. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Rafuna, listen to this. Rafuna keva asi dina lakamei michnaf umaysi asar mana beirav. Whenever Rav Huna would adjudicate a court case, he would always gather 10 people from the base medrash. Why? Amar kihechi dilamti yeshiva mikshura. So that this way, again, I only have a splinter of the beam. In other words, we'll say, well, what was Rav Huna doing? Rav Huna wanted to kind of spread the responsibility a little bit. So what he did was like this. If he would judge alone, then he would bear absolute responsibility. So what did he do? He brought other people into judgment. This way, again, there was shared responsibility should there be an erroneous verdict. Rav Ashi, when he would rule on a case, literally, again, have to seize property. So, when Rav Ashi would have to rule on a treifa, right? In other words, somebody brought him an animal, and they weren't sure, was the animal kosher or was the animal not kosher? In other words, they found some type of blemish, internal blemish. He had to pass out. What did he do? He would gather all of the butchers of the city together to help him paskin. So the Gemara says, this way, again, there's only a splinter of the beam. In other words, meaning that he wanted there to be collective responsibility for the psak halacha. Okay? So, Ki Asr Abdini Amar, Darash of Nachman Bar Kohen. My Dichsiv Melech B'mishpat Ya'amid Aretz V'ish Shrumos Yarsena. What does it mean when it says that literally, again, the king in his justice will uphold the earth, but a ish trumos, a man of gifts, will destroy it? If the king, right, if the judge is like a king, now a king doesn't need anything, he's fully self-sufficient. So if the judge is like a king, meaning again, he judges correct judgment and he doesn't rely on anyone else for anything, his judgment will uphold the earth. And ultimately, again, but if he's like a Kohen who walks around looking for gifts, right? Because a Kohen is sustained ultimately, again, by Trumas, right? By Trumas. So if he's a Kohen who's dependent on others for gift, so I'll say, what's the concern? If he's dependent on others for gift, that could sway the judgment. Such judgment ultimately destroys the world. All right, we'll stop over here for today. We're fine. Do not get worried, right? We're absolutely fine. About a week from now, the daf will get short, right? We'll be all right. We'll say, what a daf. Tremendous. I will say, shkoyach.